Marty Leenhouts with mychipcarving.com. Welcome to the International Association of Wood Carvers.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started if that's good. I'm not Blake Lunsford, and the gentleman beside me is not Blake Lunsford as well. It takes two of us to be able to keep everything rolling and going with Blake not around with us today. So we want to welcome you to the International Association of Wood Carvers. We're glad you guys are joining us. Today is January 21st, 2023. And we just want to welcome you into the meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Dave for a minute. He's going to give us some announcements and talk about some upcoming stuff going on. So Dave, it's all you, buddy.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, everybody. This is the International Association of Wood Carvers. And I'm going to start off by using this opportunity to remind everybody that this doesn't happen by itself. It's a really cool thing that Blake and Tom put together, and Dave jumped in to give them a hand. But if you want to support what they're doing, they put in a lot of time and effort, and it takes a little bit of money to keep things rolling. So if you'd like to support these guys, you can buy a cup of coffee. And that's just a matter of going to buyacoffee.com and making a small donation to show your appreciation for what they do. It just goes to keep the website up and running. They're also supported by the Wood Carving Academy. Yaron Yedidia puts that together, and it's run by a lot of different carvers who teach videos. They do a lot of work to help these guys out. There's also Helvey Knives puts a lot into this. We have upcoming presenters on the International Association of Wood Carvers. Next week, we have Pat Coffey. Pat's a caricature carver. Following Pat on the 4th of February, we have Richard Holden. Richard does some really cool faces. Following Richard on the 11th is Alec Lacasse. Alex, a smart-ass young man who is a hell of a wood carver. And following Alec is Betty Padden, and I do not know Betty, but I'm familiar with her work, and she does some great stuff. So I'm looking forward to that myself. Dan Gallagher's coming up on the 25th, and Jared Wood on the 4th of March. So stay tuned, enjoy, and man, I can't tell these guys how much I appreciate what they go through to put this on. It's a lot of work behind the scenes with meetings and getting together with different individuals to get this organized.
And we really thank Dave a lot for helping out, especially today and next week. So we do thank him because he's always there to jump in whenever we need a hand. So Dave, we do appreciate that. We thank you a lot for that. So appreciate it. Keep up the good work. We are going to actually get ready to go to our presenter today. We've got Marty Leenhouts with us today, and he's with My Chip Carving. Marty has been chip carving for quite a while, and he's going to show us a lot of his some of his technique today. He's got some good footage for us to do. So without any further ado, and I will say this before that though, if you do have any questions during it, go ahead and put your questions in the chat. Dave and I'll be watching the chat and making sure that we get those questions asked at the right time. So if you don't know how to do that, you just hit your chat, go ahead and type in your question and send it to everybody. And then Dave and I will make sure that it gets asked. So you guys know that. Without any further ado, Marty, if you want to go ahead and unmute and go ahead and get started, brother.
All right. Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be with you all. Thanks for taking out a little bit of time on your Saturday to join me and talk about chip carving. If you're brand new to chip carving, I'm going to show you some examples and also show you the basic techniques on what it takes to learn to chip carve. But before we get into any of that, let me tell you a little bit about my website. We'll get a little business out of the way. mychipcarving.com is where I host all of my courses that I have, my video tutorials, hundreds of patterns, as well as items to chip carve, and some of those with or without patterns applied, depending on what you like. So you'll find everything that I'm talking about today, all the equipment I use and materials that I'll show you to carve, all at mychipcarving.com. So be sure to go there, and if nothing else, be sure to sign up for the free email that I send out weekly. Let me give you just a couple quick reasons why chip carving is a great carving technique to learn. For one thing, with some good instruction, it doesn't take long to get good. We're not talking about years. We're just talking about a couple months, and you'll be proud of the things that you're carving. Another thing is chip carving, it goes where you go. If you're camping or visiting friends or family on the road somewhere, just pack a knife and a piece of basswood, and that's it. You don't need a vise to hold anything down. So it's really easy. It goes where you go. And there's no artistic ability required. You don't have to have that deep down artistic bent, because with a pattern, you just carve what I'll be showing you today. Take out some of the chips and leave some of the other wood uncarved, and you'll carve some beautiful rosettes and borders and different shapes. And finally, chip carving is not expensive. With a sharp knife and a piece of basswood, you're good to go. All right, so let's dig right in, and I want to talk for a moment about a sharp knife, because whether you're doing chip carving or any other style of carving, you have to have sharp tools. So I'm going to talk to you just briefly and demonstrate. I shouldn't say demonstrate, just show you the things that are in part of the Scary Sharp sharpening kit. So hang on a second while I tip my camera down. When I first started chip carving 37 some years ago, I sharpened my knives with ceramic stones because that's what I was taught. But quite a few years ago, I knew that I could get a better edge on my knives, whether it was a Helvey knife or my chip carving knives. And so I started doing some research and some experimentation, and I came up with this system that will guarantee you'll get a Scary Sharp edge on your knives. And what this consists of is 4 different grits of self-adhesive silicon carbide paper. All right, so with these strips, you peel off the backing and stick them on this square aluminum tube. All right, and it starts at 1200 grit, 1800, 4500 grit, 8000 grit, and then it's finished by honing with a leather strop. All right, so the instructions are included with the kit. It's really very straightforward. Follow the steps, and what you'll do is you start at a 1200 grit and start to count down from 10 strokes on one side and 10 on the other. And now the crucial thing that I would say a lot of the videos I've seen don't emphasize is that after 10 strokes on each side, you have to turn a burr. So after 10 strokes on the last side, you should feel a burr form, very fine burr on the opposite edge of your knife. If you don't, you go back and do 10 strokes on both sides again and check. Because if you continue on counting down and then moving on to the next grit without forming a burr, what you're doing is you're really polishing a dull edge. Because a burr forms when both edges of the steel meet together and one edge starts curling over. That's the burr. A very fine burr will form. If you don't form a burr, that means those two edges are still apart and you've got a flat spot on top. So this is crucial, that the first step, you have to turn a burr after 10 strokes, and then you can start counting down 9, 9, all the way 8 and 8 down to 1 and 1. Then you turn your tube over, lubricate with the spray bottle with some water, and again 10, 10, all the way down to 1 and 1. Now, as you're doing this, that burr that you formed will get smaller and smaller and smaller until finally, after you've done 4,500 grit and 8,000 grit, you'll have a mirror edge, and that burr will be so fine you won't be able to feel it. Then finally, you'll take out your leather strop and rub on the strop compound, and then you'll hone the edge of the knife 10 times on one side, 10, and you'll count down again all the way to 1 and 1, and I guarantee you will have a scary sharp edge. Whether that be your chip carving knife or your Helvy knife, you can check it by taking a piece of basswood and checking it on the end grain. It should make a nice, smooth, clean cut on the end grain of a piece of basswood, and then you know you've got a scary sharp edge. Okay, so that's the technique, that's the system that I came up with, and it's been very popular. You can read the reviews on my website. It's just an easy, inexpensive way to get a great edge on your knife. Store the strips in the end of the tube. Each kit comes with 4 strips for each of the grit, and take that with you wherever you go when you need to sharpen your knife. Now, a common question: how often do you need to sharpen your knife? Once it's sharp, I suggest that carvers hone their knife on the strop about every 20 minutes while carving. That will maintain the edge and keep it sharp for a long, long time. But if you're honing and it doesn't return that edge, or if there's a slight little nick on the edge, then go back to your stick, start at 1200, work through the grits in those 10-to-1 countdown, and you'll be back to scary sharp once again. Okay, so that's for the
Marty, before you get moved up real quick, got
Yeah.
a couple questions in the chat already for you. Does it matter which way you sharpen the knife? Because this person's heard all kinds of different ways. So does direction matter?
definitely.
Or maybe with the angle, I guess, when you're putting the knife on. I'm not sure 100% what the question is, but.
Right. When you place your knife down on the abrasive, you want to raise the back up so that it matches the bevel on your knife. On my chip carving knives, the bevel is very shallow, so you only need to raise it up a little bit. Maybe you could slide a dime underneath there, and then you push it away from the edge. You don't want to come towards the edge because you cut right through the abrasive paper. So you'll push it away 10 times and then back 10 times. Okay. If you were using a different knife, match the bevel to whatever angle that is on the abrasive. Now, one way you can see if you've got the right angle is take a permanent marker and make a color in the edge. Then when I put it on here and I push it away, now I'm going to be able to see wherever that marker is gone, that's the edge that I'm getting, or I should say that's the angle that I'm getting. And you'll slide it across the abrasive and you should see that marker being removed.
Now, Marty, where do you get your abrasives?
They're very hard to find if you go out looking for yourself. So I'm going to suggest you just go to mychipcarving.com. We sell the strips. We sell the tubes if you want that separately. But yeah, you're going to hunt far and wide because it took me a long time to find a supplier that supplies me with these abrasives.
Thank you, sir. It's got all the questions so far.
Okay, very good. Let me show you some examples of chip carving. When I first paged through a wood carving illustrated magazine. I should say a fine woodworking magazine in 1985. I saw some examples of chip carving and I was hooked immediately. I said I had to learn how to do that so I could make beautiful pieces like these. And since then, which was 1985, I haven't turned back. I've been chip carving ever since, and I still get that excitement at new items to chip carve, which I provide for all of my chip carving members. Okay, so here's a clock. You can see I'm just laying it down for you. Here's a box, and you can see the edge there. That's just a few examples. I've got plenty all around the house. This is a coaster set that consists of 12 rosettes. This isn't all of them, but it's quite a few of them. And I'm going to show you how to carve this rosette today. I'm going to give you sort of a condensed version of the chip carving essentials course found on my website. So if you want the full meal, go there and you'll find it all there. I've got a couple memberships, monthly or yearly. And so for $13 a month or less, you have access to this course and all the other courses and lessons I've developed. One thing that scares a lot of people away from chip carving is they say, I can't draw the pattern on the wood. Well, when I first started, you had to back in 1985, but that's no longer the case. Now we use a pattern transfer tool, which is a heat method, to get this pattern from a piece of paper onto the wood quickly and easily. Here's how it's done. This pattern transfer tool has been plugged in for a while, so it's good and hot. This pattern has been printed on my laser printer. You can either do that or take your inkjet photo copy and take it to a photocopy center like Kinko's or Office Max and print it on a photocopy machine because it has to be printed using toner. All right, so face down. And in just less than a minute, you'll see how this pattern transfers by heating up the toner and transferring it onto the wood.
Would a regular iron do the same thing?
It may, but the issue is using an iron, whether it causes issues between you and your spouse or not, that's up to you. But the difference is that these pattern transfer tools provide a nice, small, direct heat source. So I can put it in the exact spot that I want it. Wherever the pattern's not transferring, I can just heat that up and it'll fill right in. So I don't know, you'll have to experiment with the iron. Someone just told me not long ago that they found their iron worked, but I really haven't tried it myself. Mostly because the items that I transfer on, they're all different shapes and sizes. And if it's a plate, I can't fit an iron in the center of a 10-inch rim plate. Okay, so just like that, from paper to the wood, and I'm ready to chip carve. Yeah, did I drop off?
Yeah, it kind of phased out on us there for a second. That you locked up, so I think you're good though.
Okay, yeah, my internet connection's been a little unstable these last couple of days, and I don't know why, but okay. All right, chip carving is a lot about technique, and how you hold the knife is crucial. So I'm going to show you how that works, how you hold the knife properly to get a consistent angle time and time again. You'll notice that the My Chip Carving knives have a thumb notch right here for either right-handed or left-handed chip carver. All right. With the knife laid on your fingers, you just gently curl your fingers around the handle and lock the joint of your thumb into the notch on the handle, right like that. And then when your thumb and a knuckle or two are placed on the wood, it forms a 55 to 65 degree angle with the surface of the wood. Now I said 55 to 65, that's a range. It doesn't have to be 65 exactly or 62 degrees, but whatever angle you form with the knife, the goal is consistency, time and time again, to get the same angle with your knife. So once again, you hold the knife and wrap your fingers around it like that, and the joint of your thumb goes into the notch. That notch is ground at 60 degrees. So that will form a correct and consistent angle every time you hold the knife. Now, when you first start chip carving, it's going to feel awkward. Some who have been caricature carvers who have taken a class with me, the first thing they'll like to do and try to do is they'll hook their thumb on the edge of the wood like this and want to carve this way. And of course, I'll quickly point out, and I'll keep that thumb locked against the handle, because not only is it good technique, but it's also safe chip carving. When your thumb is away from the handle, now it's fair game, and you can cut your thumb quite easily. But with it locked against the handle and your thumb and knuckles on the wood, there's no way you can cut your dominant hand that you're holding the knife. And your free hand, just keep behind the cutting edge and you won't run into any accidents. So in all my years of chip carving, 37 plus, I've never cut myself while chip carving. And my students, the only time they've cut themselves has been one when they were talking with their hands and the knife in the hand. Okay, so they talk with their hands and they cut their opposite hand while they were talking. And one time a knife rolled off a lapboard of one of my students and fell down. And unfortunately, the person next to them was wearing flip-flops and it had sliced his little toe. So thankfully it wasn't any worse. But a good reminder to always watch where your knife is and also not to wear flip-flops when you're wood carving. All right, so those are just a couple of times. I did have one youngster when I was teaching young kids accidentally cut themselves, but the mom said, and I told this student, I said time and time again, put your knife down. You're not listening to what I'm saying. And I'd have him put it down. I'd come back there doing the same thing. I'd say, put your knife down again. You have to listen to what I'm saying or you're going to cut yourself. And next time I looked, the student was gone. And I followed the blood drops into the kitchen. And sure enough, his mom was with him there. And he says, don't worry about it. He doesn't listen to anything I say. So I guess I was in the clear after that. All right, so good technique. This is how you hold your knife, like this. And we're going to start with two-sided chips. So right in the center here, you'll see these two-sided chips all around the center of this rosette. And here's how we'll begin. I'm going to start right here on the outside, and it's very shallow at the start, and my depth of my cut will increase gradually to the widest part of the chip, and then I draw it out in the center. Then I'll turn the board, and I'll start where I left off, right there, and make the same cut from the inside to the outside. The next cut for the next chip next to it will be away, angled away from the chip I just removed. So I'm going to make this cut rather than this one. If I made this cut, now my knife is angled toward the chip I just removed. I want it to be angled away. So I'll start here. Turn the board and finish this chip. Next cut will be this one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can get a little closer look at this. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, next cut would be right here. Same technique for each of these chips. And by using this good grip on my knife and every angle the same, the cuts will meet in the center bottom of the chip.
Marty, what turntable are you using? What's the brand name of that?
My chip carving.
There you go.
Yeah, it's I have these in my store, and what I've done with them is I buy in bulk the turntable on the bottom, and then I apply this no slip mat on the surface. Okay, so now we've got the perfect turntable for chip carving, relief carving, whatever it might be. Now, when you first start chip carving, you do one chip at a time, just like I've been doing. But after a while, you'll do more of the same cut on multiple chips. So I would do this cut, and I'd work my way all the way around the center of the rosette, making the same cuts. And the reason you wouldn't do this as a beginning chip carver is if you're making a mistake on your cut, maybe the angle is wrong or you're not getting deep, you would then repeat that same mistake through all of the chips and you wouldn't learn anything in the process. So that's why you'd only do this after you've got experience and you're comfortable with your technique. Then I would come back and make the inside out cuts on
Now,
all of these chips.
Marty, is your thumb locked in against the knife now?
Yes, it is. I can't quite see it so good, but yeah, I'm still in contact with the handle. It may come off. Occasionally you might see it slip off a little bit. Probably just technique that I've developed and maybe poor technique, I should say.
Marty, there's a question in the chat about your applying your piece over top.
Yeah.
If they're using an iron, they found that high spots and low spots on the wood don't copy the same. Is that true?
Oh, sure. I suppose so with a regular iron, because now
Okay.
you've got a big flat surface on trying to heat it up. And if your wood isn't perfectly flat to match up with the bottom of the iron, yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. But
And what types of wood can you use for chip carving?
yeah, good question. Well, basswood is primarily the wood we use, but butternut is also an excellent chip carving wood. White pine is good. Aspen is fine. Let me think what else we've got. I've got an assorted wood pack in our store that contains basswood, butternut, white pine, and aspen. So those 4 are the ones that we recommend. You can chip carve other woods as long as they're soft enough. So those are the primary ones that come to my mind in this softness range. So those are 2-sided chips. When you look at this plate, this one, these are all 2-sided chips around the center here. Just a little bit bigger and a little bit different shape, but they are 2-sided. All right, the next chips on this rosette are called 3-corner chips. Okay, so 3 cuts to remove the chip. The style of carving that we're doing is called Swiss style of chip carving, and it's that style consists of every cut at the same angle with your knife. So on these 2-sided chips, we had 2 cuts, same angle. 3-corner chips, 3 cuts, all at the same angle. And here's how it's done. We'll start our cut here. The dot in the center on this pattern shows you the deepest part of the chip. That's where the point of the knife should reach. Then I draw it out to the point. Then I'll turn the board, continue where I've ended the first cut to make the second cut, right to there. And then the third cut to remove the chip. And if all 3 cuts were made at the same angle, they'll meet in the bottom. Right, like that. So you saw the little bit of wood that was left. I just made that a little deeper on my first cut to take it out. Let's do another one. First cut. Second. And third. And when you hear that snap, you know your cuts have met together in the bottom. And just like before, I would make repetitive cuts one after another to not only carve more efficiently, but also more consistently. So I'd make all the first cuts all the way around. And then I'd come back for the second cuts.
Now, Marty, as you're going around, some cuts are going to be going with the grain and some cuts are going to be going against the grain or across grain. Does your technique change at all, or is that just an advantage of having a good sharp knife?
Well, of course, a sharp knife helps, but there are some different situations where we would change the order of cuts depending on grain direction. But for our meeting today, I think that would just cause more confusion than education. So I think we're going to just leave it at that for today. I do teach repeatedly in my lessons about how to determine grain direction with your cuts, because when they're at an angle, some carvers it's more difficult to determine, well, is that with the grain or against the grain? You know, because it's not straight in line with the grain. So I do cover that and show a good technique on how to determine that. And if we have a chance, maybe I could even demonstrate that in our meeting today. Okay, so that's those are 3-corner chips. And you'll notice in the rest of this pattern, it consists entirely of 3-corner chips, except for this ring right around here. All right, so I think I'll go ahead and make the cut around the ring. Then I'll work on these 3-corner chips out here. And while I'm doing that, you can ask questions and we'll take it from there. Okay, so this is basically a 2-sided chip to form this ring. I'm going to carve inside the line to start with and just turn the board on the turntable right underneath my knife. Most of my years of chip carving, I didn't carve on a turntable, and I really didn't know what I was missing, because it really makes it easy to get nice, smooth curve cuts when you can easily just turn the board right around on the turntable.
Now, Marty, can you leave the pattern, like if you put the pattern on with an adhesive or something, could you just leave the pattern and cut through the pattern?
Yeah, some carvers do that. They'll apply the pattern with rubber cement and then carve through the paper to remove the chips. It's not something that I have ever really encouraged, because you can't see the grain of the wood, and it's a little more difficult for carvers to determine which direction with the grain cuts will be. But if you're used to it and find success with it, yeah, go ahead.
And when you finish, do you sand off any extra lines that are there, or how do you deal with any little lines that are left around?
Yeah, good question. We do that with it's called a Tombow sand eraser. All right, instead of sanding off the lines with a piece of abrasive, we don't want to do that, because what that would do is it would flatten all of these ridges that we work so hard to carve. If you took sandpaper and sanded that off, that's going to flatten all those nice sharp ridges. So instead, we're going to use a Tombow sand eraser. And what the Tombow does is it breaks apart as it's removing the pattern transfer lines that are left over. And it doesn't destroy your carving. And I think you know where you can get these, right? It's a Japanese eraser. It says, oh, it used to say for typewriter here. Now it says for ink. So, but anyways, that's what we do at the end to remove all the leftover pattern lines. Tombow sand eraser. All right, I'm going to work on some of these 3-corner chips out here, and feel free to raise any questions you like in the chat, and I'll be glad to address them.
Marty, how many pieces of chip carving do you think you do in a 1 month time period?
Oh, you know, I can only guarantee that I'll do 1 piece a month, because I have a new project, a new pattern every month at my chip carving. So for sure, one a month. And then it seems like a lot of my time is taken up with business things and developing the lesson and producing the pattern, making knives, and keeping my customers carving. So that's what takes quite a bit of my time.
Now, for your transfer, how fine should you sand the piece before you transfer onto it?
Yeah, another good question. The finer you sand it, the flatter and smoother the surface, the better your pattern will transfer. You get cleaner and crisper lines, the smoother, flatter surface that you have. If your surface is coming out, the pattern is coming out spotty and ragged, maybe try sanding the surface a little smoother before applying the pattern.
Now, back into your pattern stuff, you would suggest using an inkjet printer and not a laser jet printer, correct? To be able to erase.
To use the pattern transfer tool, you have to have a laser printed pattern or a photocopy because it has to be produced with toner. Now, you use the words, I think, inkjet or laser jet. Now, often when you have the word jet in there, that refers to ink. And that's something the printer people, how they name their printers seems to be the case. But you'll need a laser printed image or a photocopy. Some folks will have an inkjet printer that says, well, it will photocopy. Yeah, it will, but it's going to photocopy with ink and not toner. So you need to have a toner produced image, and you'll know it's a toner machine when you have to refill it. If you refill it with this black powder, the black powder is toner.
Can you use a regular carving knife to do chip carving?
Well, let me put it this way. If you search and look for carving knives online, you'll see several different styles. The blades will be sort of straight, and they look like a short knife like this with the blade a little shorter. Now, and one more thing, some you'll see even a skew knife. A skew knife is used for geometric carving that they do in Russia and Eastern European countries. But back to this, as far as knives, my knife has been designed with the correct angle here, and also so that when it's in your hand, you're generating these same cuts, and when the point of the knife it goes in, it's going to reach the bottom of the chip. Now picture a straighter knife. You're going to have to go down at a different angle and probably raise your knuckles off the wood or whatever the case might be to get the point into the bottom of the chip. So of course, my suggestion is we'll get a chip carving knife for chip carving. I've got a few different styles, levels of knives on the website. I've got a basswood handled knife where you can carve the handle yourself. And then I've got a middle range knife, a diamond with a bow coat handle, and then this is my diamond deluxe knife. And all three have the same high quality blades that come pre-sharpened. Okay, these are bigger 3-corner chips, so I need more depth on my cut. Now I have to reach that dot with the point of the knife, and it's way out here. So far, I've been carving pretty small chips. Now these are bigger. And a sharp knife makes it so much easier and more enjoyable.
Can you use the same transfer tool for pyrography?
Not the one that I have, but, and I don't know if there are different transfer tools out there that have different tips. I don't know, so I really can't answer that one. But not the ones that I sell. They're just strictly for pattern transfer.
And they're asking about pyrography patterns. I'm sorry, I missed that last word on that.
How many what?
I missed the last word. They were saying pyrography patterns, not just pyrography pieces of work, for the art, but the pyrography patterns.
Oh, can you transfer pyrography patterns? Definitely. If that was the question? Yeah, I demonstrated how to use that tool when I was at a carving get together, and I demonstrated it for the pyrography people, how to use the pattern transfer tool. Oh, definitely. Yeah, you want to use that. You can use it for scroll sawing. It's the way to go.
So do you have a specific way that you're keeping track of where you are since you're going through a set pattern of stuff?
Where I am on the cuts?
Yeah, like you're doing the right side all the way around one way and then going back through the other side. Do you have a way that you keep track of that before you try to push it off or carve the same spot
actually,
again?
Actually, if you notice, I really don't. And I actually put my finger down to see if I had made the last cut, because sometimes you can't see them. And so on my last go around, when I got to what I thought was the last cut, I had to check it with my finger to see if I had actually made the cut or not. And then any chips that don't come out, I'll make one of the cuts again. We'll take them out.
And got another question here in the chat. Is there only one position of the knife in the hand for all cuts? And also, does the pattern smear with the knuckles on the board?
The pattern does not smear. And the question couldn't have been timed more perfectly, because you can roll the knife over, and you do on certain occasions, to make different cuts. And I was taught to put your thumb on the top of the spine of the blade, but I have found that it's better to put your thumb along the handle of the knife to form a consistent angle when you roll your knife over. And that can be very useful when you have to make your cuts with the grain on different chips that you're removing. So yeah, there is another way you hold the knife, by rolling it over.
And then when you start your chips, does it matter if you start on the long side or the short side of the triangle?
It does. And let me go over that with these chips in particular. And I'll show you on the outside ones. Okay. So where do you start the cut? So we've got some big 3-corner chips on the outside. which cut do I make first? What I would do, and I'd suggest, and I'd cover this in my lessons, is you would start on the outside and make this cut. And then from here to here, and then along the outside. Here's why. I want to make this cut first, so it ends right here, right where I want it to. And then when I start the second cut, I know exactly where to start it, right there. And I'm going to explain to you what happens if we don't follow this order of cuts, or what could happen. So my second cut, I know right where I want to start the cut, right there. And then I would leave the outside cut to remove all of the chips. So I keep a nice smooth circle around the outside, but I'll remove this one just for demonstration's sake. Now, if I made this cut first, here to here, and then I come with this cut from here to here, we've got an area that can chip out right in here. I've already weakened it by taking out this cut right here. And I cover this a lot in my lessons, and this is called short grain right here. Short grain is a weak portion of the wood. And if I made the order of cuts like I showed you here, from here, and then here, and then here, right at the end, the whole chip is wanting to come out, and it will want to take out this piece of wood with it. You could avoid it by rolling your knife over and making this cut. Now I have separated the short grain. Now it's not going to chip out. And if you don't remember this, don't worry. This is more advanced than an introduction to chip carving, but that is something that I explain a lot in my lessons, how to avoid chip out in different areas. And a lot of it has to do with your order of cuts. I know some of you will be needing to go. It's 3 o'clock. And like I say, visit my website, reach out to me by email. I'm always available to help. Check out the free newsletter and the memberships I have available. A yearly membership, you get 2 weeks for free. So there's nothing to risk when you do it that way. And yeah, I'm glad to help you, because I really want you to learn how to enjoy chip carving and learn how to do it well.
If we have any more questions, if you want to put them in the chat right now so we can get them to Marty, just for give you another couple seconds of that, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, you may do that.
If you're left-handed, do you do it any different?
You do it with your left hand then, if you're left-handed. So you're left-handed, thumb notch again, the joint of your thumb goes in the notch as a left-hander. And now as you're making your cuts, instead of this side first, as a left-hander, I would make this side first. So it's just the opposite side as a right-handed carver. Same technique though, because it's from the outside in. So outside in, just for a left-hander, would be the opposite side.
It looks like it might be gluable.
Last call for any more questions for Marty today. All right. Well, with that, I'm gonna give Marty a second to transfer the shared content back over to me, and we'll
Will do.
get our meeting stuff going out there.
Well, I want to thank everybody. You know, we all have how we choose how we spend our time. So thanks for spending it with me. I appreciate it.
And with that being said, we're
Thank
gonna
you.
get here for our last little section here, guys. If you want to do anything to look at any of Marty's stuff, you can go to mychipcarving.com and you can see all of that with him. And do that. I'm gonna bring on one last section here. We don't do this with Blake around, but I'm gonna spotlight this one person for everybody for a word of wisdom for the day. And we'll let him thank everybody for being here too when he gets done and end our call for us. As always, though, International Association of Woodcarvers does thank everyone for being here today. Blake will be back not next week, but the week after. So you have to put up with myself and my co-host guest for one more week. But I hope you guys enjoy it. And we do thank you guys so much for being here. With that being said, I'm going to turn you over to a good friend and let him share a word of wisdom with you.
Boy, we're getting deep now. Okay, I'm going to share with you a word from an artist by the name of Lynn Boyer. I heard her one day say that we need to go from being a copier to being a creator. It's good to copy. We learn by copying. So we copy to learn, then we experiment with studies to understand what we're doing, and then we step into the world of creating our own work. So that's my tip for the day. I don't know if it's a word of wisdom. It didn't come from my brain. I'm just passing on what I heard from somebody else. But we want to thank you for being part of the International Association of Woodcarvers. The great thing about this, it's like joining a club without dues. So, and you don't, when the meeting's over, you don't have to drive home. You're already there. So, unless you're riding in a plane like Blake.
And Dave, I'm going to keep the last bit recording. We're going to do an outro.
What do you got in mind?
I'm just thinking, hey, man, Dave, you did a great job today. Well, Dave, you did a great job today. Yeah, that was good. Well, what do you want to say to the people? Well, join us again next time.
Let's let Blake stay in Mexico and we'll make it the Dave and Dave show.
Oh, that works too. That wouldn't be bad either. I don't know. I want him back.
Kind of like red green.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, Dave, I appreciate you being here and helping out, man.
Hey, Dave, I appreciate all you've done. You've been great.
That works out good, and I hope everybody joins us next week.